Bishop, the Preparedness Pro. We had a little bit of a problem in our household tonight. We discovered that our freezer wasn't working in some of the areas. Some of the shelves were thawed. The meat had thawed. It was still cold, but it had thawed. So all of a sudden I am turning into a canning fool, and we're having prime rib on a Tuesday night. Anyway, so I thought I'd take this opportunity to share with you how to can large portions of beef. I've got rump roast and chuck roast here that need to be canned. I've washed them off, rinsed them off nicely. Normally if I was canning these for a real dinner, I would actually pat them dry, but I'm not going to do that in this case. So I'm just going to show you how it works. The number one thing is when I'm cooking roast and canning it, is I want the pieces of meat to be as thick as possible, as big as possible. And so that means I need to use a wide mouth mason jar, also in the quart size, because that's as big as you can get that you can comfortably and safely can in. Here's the difference. As you can see, the wide mouth is going to be easier for me to get the bigger pieces of meat in than the regular mouth. So what we're going to do, since we're having to can this is not going to be all nice and pretty like it would normally be. So I'm going to actually cut away the string that is normally on these types of roasts to keep them put together. So we're not going to need that. Just remove that. You're going to want a good boning knife for this particular project. Your knife will be critical. So, I don't mean that your knife is going to insult you and be critical. I just mean it will be critical to this task and doing it properly. Alright, just got a little bit of hung up right there. This is really great meat. We're really excited to be able to buy this half a cow. So I definitely do not want to waste it. Okay, so as you can see now, it's not all nice and pretty. And here's our rump roast. So we have prime rib, we have chuck roast, and we have rump roast. I'm going to try to keep each of the different meats in their own quart jar, and we'll probably end up using 2 quart jars per piece. And I'm not going to discard the bone in here. I actually want that for some of the flavoring as well. So what you want is you want nice clean jars. They don't have to be sanitized and boiled, but they do need to be nicely clean. Just simple soapy water that you've used to clean them out. And then we're just going to put the meat in here. So first of all, I am going to put this bone in there because that's going to be the hardest part to get in. And I do not cut off any of the fat because believe me, the fat is just delicious. It adds to the flavor and it's just something that I can't do without. I'm going to have to cut a little bit of this off in order to get that properly into the jar. But I like having the bone on the bottom because it flavors everything else. This will be so tender. It's going to be some of the best meat that you've ever had. Each one of these jars is kind of like its own little pressure cooker. Okay, we've got one just of the rump roast, one just of the chuck roast. Now we have a little bit of a combination of the rump and the chuck. Now I'm going to get into this prime rib here. And again, just take off the strings because we just don't have room for fancy. And this will be great. I can get big chunks of this right into the jar. Oh, it looks so pretty. So beautiful. Squeeze it down in there. It's going to shrink quite a bit as it cooks. Now understand, when you're done pressure canning this, everything is completely cooked. You could open it up without reheating it and eat it straight out of the can, or the jar if you wanted to. Nice big piece. The meat is just beautiful inside here. Just the right amount of marbling. Just very little. What I'm going to do is, because this is just such a beautiful cut here, I'm going to actually see if I can't get this whole piece into one jar just by itself, even if it means I don't have quite as much in another one. Yeah, it's beautiful. I'm going to just take one of these other bigger pieces and put that in. Just get this little bit out here. Now notice I haven't put any seasoning in this yet. I am going to put a little bit of salt in. Will that work? Yep, it'll work perfect. I'm going to put a little bit of salt in. In fact, I'm actually going to blend this meat with the others just for space. It just seems such a shame to can prime rib like this. Oh. But you know, at least we get to do it, right? At least we're not going to lose everything because of the power going out. Ta-da! And you know what? I think I'm going to cook this up for the kids, i.e. the furry ones, tonight. Just going to cut into this a little bit. We're going to enjoy some nice dinner. Okay, so we've got 4 jars, which basically means we have about 2 to 2.5 pounds of meat in each one of the jars. Your pressure canning time in this particular instance is going to be 12 minutes for each pound. So, that means we don't really have to can it very much. Or pressure can it very much. Maybe about 30 minutes. However, you're going to need to do it at 15 pounds of pressure as opposed to your 5 and your 10. So all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put a little bit of the kosher salt on the top here. So. And we're going to put filtered water in here. Now in this case, you want to fill all of your air pockets full of the water because that is a wonderful broth that's just waiting to happen. So one of the things I like to use is I like to use the Shirley J onion seasoning. It doesn't have any added MSG. Just need about a half a teaspoon for a jar. And it's just such a better flavor. If you ever buy the Lipton onion soup mix, this is so much less expensive and so much better tasting. Okay, now before you get all excited thinking you're all done with your water, you want to push the butter knife down the sides and kind of push in. I just kind of leverage in so that I can get my water all throughout. This is going to make the best broth you've ever had in your life. It's just going to be so absolutely yummy. We'll do the same thing with all the other jars as well. This one definitely, because we're not going down, so I can see all kinds of air bubbles. See here how we don't have any moisture right there. So we'll just push the knife down, make sure everything gets in there. Okay, same with the others. Again, your water only goes up to your rings here because you need to leave headspace. Okay, so you clean off all the lids, of course. Make sure there's absolutely no fat, particles, morsel, anything on there, so that will compromise your seal. And then what I do after that, when I want to differentiate the various meats, I just, right in the very center of the lid, this is just to help me know what this is. So that's my prime rib. My mix. It's going to get a little bit runny in the canning process, but typically there's enough left on the jars, on the top of the jars, that I can figure out what's in them. Anyway, so when you put the ring on, you want to make sure you put it on until you have resistance. As soon as you have resistance, you just want to do a fingertip tight turn. we go. Now, some people I've heard put a beef bouillon in there. I think it's silly to put a beef bouillon in there. I mean, this is great, but if you look at the ingredients, there's really not much beef in there, if any. So I suggest that you just let these flavors make your own beef broth, beef bouillon. It's going to be so wonderfully intense that this will be a good base. Just a little bit of moisture in here will be a good base for, I don't know, a quart or two just of a really good beef broth. So take advantage of this. I always put as much water in these as they'll let me so that I have that beautiful, beautiful broth. You know, you have people talking about how long they let things marinate and simmer to really concentrate the flavors. Well, that's what's happening when you can food and you put just a little bit. Now, because I put some salt and the onion seasoning on the top, I actually like to do just a little mix. And sometimes what happens every once in a while is it'll let me know if there's another air pocket, but in this case there's not. But I do that with each of them. Okay. All right, now these are ready to go in the canner, and as soon as I get my last batch out of there, these will go in.